Thank you so much for joining the Trauma and Resiliency, the See You Try show. I am Karen Sims, and I am so lucky to be with amazing women who've joined us today for our panel. So I will introduce them. I'm going to do my first little disclaimer, not because of the panelists, but just to remind you the views and opinions of the panelists are their own. So they are free to share whatever they want to share. The Trauma and Resiliency Initiative is working to make Champaign County a trauma-informed community. So we want people to be aware of trauma, but also the resiliency and strengths. And I want to share a little bit about what generated the idea for the show was, and I have this later on as a conversation topic, but I was looking at social media and was just amazed at all of the discussion about Black women and Black moms and Black families that did not include Black moms, Black women, Black families. And I thought, right? Like, why don't we let Black women, Black moms, and families speak for themselves? And acknowledging that the representative voices I have are not all Black women. So first of all, right, like just because they are representative voices, they are not speaking for every single Black woman in Champaign-Urbana or on the planet. They are speaking about what they know and their own lived experience. But I am really, really fortunate and pleased that I have an amazing group of women who decided to show up. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we'll get into the conversation. But I am looking forward to this. And so hopefully, remember, if you have questions or things that you want to ask, you can send them via Facebook and we will do our best to respond to them. So we encourage you to ask questions. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I am Rita Conerly. I'm actually born and raised right here in Champaign-Urbana. My family actually, I'm a single mom. I have children that age and range from 19 to 2. That's 8 children. So I have bookend boys. So my boys are on the outside, and then I have 6 daughters in the middle. I'm actually a University of Illinois employee. I work at the Center for Advanced Study, and most recently taking a lead in some of the activist work here in and around Champaign-Urbana, and really kind of enjoying that. I also am involved with our schools and being very active as we plan the next stages. Really unsure with what that will look like, but having, seats at the table with trying to plan out what will be the most effective, especially for our Black and brown families and families like mine, single household families.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
My name is Regina Crider, and I am the Director of Youth and Family Peer Support Alliance, and we're located in Rantoul. Specifically, what we do is support parents and families of children who have mental health challenges and assisting them with navigating various systems. I started doing this particular work around children's mental health about 10 years ago when my daughter attempted suicide at school. And it put me on the fast track to learn more about children's mental health, put me on a fast track to understand what I needed to do as a parent to support her in what's going on with her. With that, I have over 20 years experience of, advocating for families, born and raised in this area, went into the military for 5 years, came back. My whole entire community was different, and that's how I really got involved in working with families, serving families, and some of the little things that they do on a more public basis here in Rantoul. And last but not least, on top of being a mom and a wife and a director of our organization, I also pastor my father's, who is the founding pastor of the church. I pastor Crossfield of Life Community Church, which is located in Rantoul.
Thank you. Welcome, Regina.
I guess I'll go next. I was trying to wait. I get shy. But so my name is Cecily Thomas, and like Rita, I'm also from Champaign, born and raised here. Went through all of my schooling here. I have 3 children. They are, my oldest is turning 16 next month. tier. And then I have a 6-year-old, and then my baby is turning 5 next month. And I am a teacher at Centennial High School. I've been teaching for, I'm starting my 15th year teaching. I teach Spanish by trade, but mostly for the last few years, I've been teaching Avid. And I'm also, I have a little organization that I started last year called Black Teachers Alliance. And so that's something cool. And
cool.
I love that work. And then also a new project that I have is I have dedicated or committed to my children to start a YouTube channel for them. So I will need your strength and prayers.
Love it. Oh, I'm excited. Right. So you're already hearing how hella fabulous this group of women is, right? With all the various layers. And Janelle, last but not least.
Yeah, I guess that leaves me. My name's Janelle Davenport. Pleasure. I am a single mom of 3 beautiful children, ages 16, 14, and 10. Make sure I got that right. Yes. And let's see, I was not born and raised here. I'm originally from Colorado, kind of a transplant, but we've been here for 16 years. So I guess that makes me a townie.
Gotta claim it.
You know, I'll claim Champaign. You know. But I am a poet, a fashion designer, a dance instructor, a recycled artist. So there are many umbrellas and hats that I wear, but I am also an activist for our community, for those who have been treated unfairly, those who feel like they don't have anybody to advocate for them. I am that parent, and I'm really excited to see what this powerhouse of women have to say today as far as getting our community back into the village that it needs to be.
Absolutely. So that's a perfect segue. So first of all, like, you're hopefully realizing out there in the audience that Black women are diverse. We do not fit into any one box. We wear multiple different hats. And to that end, right, like right now in this moment of time is an intersection between so many different issues, right? We've got COVID, we've got economic issues, we've got back to school, we've got community violence, and probably a host of other issues. And I think we should maybe just sort of sit and have a conversation about each one of those. And maybe the most obvious, because it seems to overlay impact everything, would be COVID. And I guess I'd want to know, like, how or what have you noticed about COVID and how it might be impacting Black families and Black communities? Or you, right? Like, you could also talk about your own lived experience too.
Well, I'll say for me, it has impacted me in the sense of I am now my mother's caretaker. And so I have to be very limited on how I interact with other people. And I have found that more and more Black families are needing to do that. And so people are really grappling. Now, I have a friend that's a teacher, and she's really grappling with what's happening in her district because she has a husband with underlying conditions. If he stays home, she stays home, what does that do to our income, right? And then you have those who, like myself, like I said, caring for a older parent, and what does that look like as far as being able to help assist financially with them or whatever the case may be that they need. Overall, our family has transitioned well in this process, but that's because we are considered part of the essential workers. But my heart breaks for all of the families that are out there that are not considered essential workers and have been off. And so I foresee that especially with their stimulus bill not being passed, that there is going to be major fallout with that, and that it's going to hit our community hard. And, you know, Champaign has a lot of resources. Champaign County has lots of resources, but I think it's going to, this economic impact is going to burden the system.
Yeah. So who else might want to share? Because I think what you're talking about being in that sandwich generation impacts Black and brown families in unique ways, where frequently we are caretakers and we've got kiddos. And so we're trying to toggle those things. And that is, been part of the complexity. Anybody else want to share?
I'll say, for me personally, it's been a little bit more of the opposite end of this. COVID has actually been a good thing for my family. Mm-hmm. I am the type of mother that is on the go constantly. I'm in everything and doing everything. And so I felt kind of guilty because I didn't have a lot of time for my children and a lot of time to really be heavily involved in everything that they're doing like I wanted to. Because when you're a single mom, you have to do everything. So for me, being able to just kind of slow down and stop has allowed my children to, get to see more of their mother, but get to bond better. We have better conversations. We're able to, as a family unit, grow closer together. And that's been really good. But looking at it from the outside at other families, I've seen a lot of heartbreak. A lot of people have lost family members. Like Miss Regina was saying, some are having to take care of their parents while taking care of their children. You have 2-income household, and then it gets reduced to nothing. And so to see my friends and my family members kind of go through that, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. And I haven't had that experience yet. I mean, the economic aspect of it, yes, it has been a little difficult, but I have managed to find ways, as I believe most Black and brown people have that ability to be able to find resources, and we're very resilient, so nothing will keep us down for too long. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful that I have that mindset and that I can keep myself and my family going. But it's heartbreaking to see many that don't have that.
Yeah.
It's hard.
So, wow. So Rita, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, and I actually share some of the same sentiments that Janelle stated, with feeling like COVID really freed up my time to allow me to spend more time with my children. The marker for me was spring break at the beginning of at the semester, in the spring semester, and that's where everything kind of changed. I'd have to admit, though, our in-home is kind of chaotic because schedules are like no more. So for my household, generally it runs better when people know what's coming next. And so now, with not really having that strict schedule to adhere to, I have children going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and waking up at noon. And, as a mother, thankfully, I'm still able and have my job. Unfortunately, others have lost their jobs. So I am still able to work from home. And luckily, my immediate supervisor is understanding to the fact that I am a single mother. So what I can get done in the immediate while they're sleeping until noon, I do. As you know, I have a lot of friends who now don't have childcare, but still need to work. So I've kind of opened up my home for that as well. And my unit, we are a team. And so they know that we're as strong as our weakest link. And so we must help each other. And so that goes along with helping our community. So, taking this moment with, COVID, and then with with everything that's going on, the social and racial injustices, and trying to tag along my family to see, and to be a witness and to understand the why, because sometimes it's difficult for children to understand, why aren't you home? Or why do I have to watch my siblings? Or, whatever the case may be. But here lately, we're transitioning somewhat back into norm, or whatever that looks like. But my children are starting back some of the programs that they were previously in, and learning that maybe this is not something that I want to do. So this time has really allowed us to evaluate life prior to COVID and what it will look like after. And I think we're able to find a lot of great things during this what people would consider a bad time or unprecedented moment. So
thank you. Cecily, did you want to add anything, or are you good?
I don't really have anything extra to add, because I think what Rita and Janelle said is pretty much what's going on with me too. We are pretty blessed. Both my husband and I work for Champaign Schools, he works for Urbana Schools. And so in the beginning, we were able to be home, him less because he's a tech guy, so they need him. But I was able to be home with my kids and, like they said, just really spend time with them. But as a teacher, it was really difficult for me to not be able to connect with my students on an everyday basis. There are some of them that I worry about and I need to talk to them I've been like hunting down phone numbers and just like popping up, calling them, like they're like, what, Miss Thomas? Yes, where are you? Like, what are you doing? Why aren't you logging in or whatever? So that has been stressful, not being able to, well, that was stressful, not being able to connect with them in the spring. And I'm hoping that the fall is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I am like very afraid of what is going to happen to some of them.
So we'll definitely like talk about school and back to school, because that seems like a perfect segue. But I'm going to just say this out loud. So one of the things that I notice, right, in the like social media sphere is there's an assumption that none of you confirmed, right? There's an assumption on social media that Black families, particularly single Black families, don't have time for their kids, don't want to connect with their kids, can't educate their kids. And I know, right, you guys are sort of role model-y, but from your experience, what would you want to say to people who have that as a stereotype, as a notion? Because what Rita described, like opening her home for the village, is been my experience, but I don't know. So talk to me, because I don't want to be the ambassador for Blackness, but I see a whole bunch of like, we can't take care of our kids. We can't figure it out.
Well, I'd have to go back to what Regina stated with our city being very resourceful. I think one of the issues may be that people don't know the resources that they are eligible for or that are available to their family, but we're resourced here in Champaign. But for me, I'm sorry. For me, you make time for what you feel is important. And so, and that's why I do a lot of the things that I do as far as service with my family, because that's time that we're spending together too. And they're seeing, you know, the efforts of serving our community and what that looks like. And so I just honestly believe when you're passionate and when you have a heart for something, you will make time for that.
Yeah.
And I went through the same, I went through the same kind of process of similarly to what Cecily said and Rita said about keeping in contact with families and different things. So I'm blessed and fortunate to know enough that because of the organization I have, I can kind of mold services that are specific to a family that might be in need. And so one of the things I heard and seen on social media, not so much other people saying that Black people couldn't educate their children, but the lack of confidence in parents thinking that they can't educate their children. And so what we did was added a couple of staff people who can help assist with that one-on-one tutoring with these children where parents are not feeling confident. What I've learned over the years is that there's a lot of kids who are going to school and their parents don't know how to support them because either A, they never finished school, right? Or another thing is B, they feel like all of the educating and learning must be done at the school. That's not my job. But I've expressed to people, you know, we need to kind of get away from that mindset, because who taught us before public schools? And another point that I make out is that people are talking about not wanting to be dependent on the system. The school is a system. It's a government system that everyone is a part of and take part in. So you got schools having kids at school at 6 o'clock in the morning, going to school all day, staying until 6 o'clock at night, you know, but we can recreate that in our own community as for each other as support and not be dependent on the school system, because obviously this has shown us how fragile this nation is, this world is, and we need to already have a plan in place. So that's the way I look at it, is whatever I can do to help families be sustainable, self-sustainable.
And when you mention that to families, are they receptive?
They are. It's just needing to be encouraged, and also taking me up on the offer to get support, right? And I do find them very receptive to that.
So I hope those who are listening, so if you are a policymaker, a funder, a program person, families will listen. They want to be engaged. They like their kids for the most part. Like, right? Like, and so if we can get resources to them and make them available and assume families want to be involved, if we build it, they will come rather than assume that they don't want it. Cecily, what were you going to say?
When Regina was talking, the quote, I think by Audre Lorde, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house, is what I'm thinking. And so I'm a teacher, but school is the master's tools. And so like we as parents, we are going to have to be responsible for unschooling our children. And one of the things that I heard a lot of parents like worried about was like, I have to work. The teachers are sending home all of this stuff. Like, how am I going to make sure this is done? And another thing I was seeing was a lot of white parents and my white coworkers who are also parents were like, I'm just going to use this time to relax. We can teach them later. And something that I like went live and was like, hey, Black parents, that's not for y'all though. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's cool. That's cool for white people if that's what they want to do. But that's not what we doing over here. So one of the things that I was encouraging parents to do was like, you know what, if you can't do what the teacher sent home, your kid can learn math another way. They can learn how to read another way. You don't have to do what they sent, but we need to do something. Because one of the things that a lot of parents were afraid of was like, if I don't give them all of this stuff, when they get back to school, they're going to be behind. And the only reason that they're worried about that is because they know that teachers don't have the same type of sympathy for Black and brown skin. Mm-hmm. Like when we go back, we're going to really see if all of this racial justice, this racial equity that everybody loves to talk about right now, if that is something that's actually going to come into play. Is that going to show in the classrooms? Because people love to be sympathetic for Johnny and Susie, but Ray Ray or whatever other name you want to say or whatever, like for Black and brown kids, it's not the same. It's really not. So
yeah, absolutely. So, right, like people think of differentiated instruction, like giving people what they need, right? And like leveling it somehow only means that we level to the bottom and that we keep the expectations low, that we don't think about like, how do we bring people along? So Rita, I saw you were nodding, and Janelle, I saw you were nodding.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of that. And what I find interesting is that we as a people have been raising our children, teaching our children, educating our children from the beginning of time. This is not something new. This is not something we are not aware of. But it is going to take a lot more work, because it has been, from personal experience and just watching history, there's a dismantling of the Black family. Mm-hmm. And it's being torn down. And the more that it's being torn down, not only are the families being dissipated, but the children are losing out. It's not being passed on generationally, and we're suffering. And if we don't get back to the mindset of keeping our families together, building a village, building a community, then that's the stereotype and all of that stuff that the other communities, I will say, have been putting out is going to continue for the rest of our lives. That'll be the generations that we pass on to our children. I definitely don't want to see that happen, which is why I am trying to make sure that our Black and brown families are finding ways, finding resources, trying to connect together. That's the only way we're going to be able to make it out of this mess, is if we do it together. That's the only way we're going to dismantle the stereotypes, is if we do this together. But again, here's the key. We have to do it together.
Right.
And I totally agree with what both of the ladies are saying. Cecily, I applaud you for, as an educator, removing that hat and realizing that as a parent, Black and brown children, when they are in the schools, are not giving the same opportunities even still in 2020. And we're understanding that. And as Janelle is saying, and I'll kind of piggyback off of her, is we really need to work together and create networks for ourselves and for our family, because we do have, we have a working class of Black and brown parents that are unable to attend when children are being reprimanded for trouble that they're in, or, even to attend some of their events that they're involved in, some of the programs, their sporting events or extracurriculars. And so it really is about creating the network of family. And again, that village that we once used to rely on, and working, as a family, because in essence, that's what we are anyway. And so if our children can see us working together as adults, then that's going to reflect in their own behaviors, as they transition and as they age. So I agree. And Cecily, thank you again for, as an educator, pointing out what the obvious are. What we know.
Right.
Well, yeah. Right. Unfortunately. And, so that is, Cecily, what were you going to say?
Nothing.
Okay. So I think that, was there anything else? So I know that there are some fears around school that we could talk about, that we probably should make sure we talk about, but also, like you guys are hinting around the need to kind of work together collaboratively. And I'm also hearing some talk or thought about the money challenges that may get in the way of Black families, particularly Black mamas, being able to operate the way that they need. What are you hearing around some of the economic pressures of the day and how it might be showing up in our families that, if you were talking to a larger group of stakeholders, you'd want them to know about?
Equal opportunity. What I see as a big issue, and I'll just be 100% honest, my children are very active, engaged, but in the community and sports. But that's just because I really don't have a fear with asking. Hey, do you guys offer, scholarships? Do you have a sliding scale for payments? Do you have a free month of, this activity that they can do so I can see if they're interested or not? So if we can get more organizations, more businesses to understand that we're already marginalized, and that's socioeconomically as well. And so if we can allow our children to take advantage of some of the same things that the white children are taking advantage of, and gifting our children with something different and allowing them to explore other options that they may not be otherwise able to because of financial hardships. So I'm all for, allowing them the opportunity to see and, kind of put out there on a platform, if given, what their natural God-given talents are. And again, one of the biggest things that prevents that is the financial hardship. For me as a single mom, trying to make sure that everybody is doing what they'd like to do, I'm just thankful that I'm, able to rely on the resources and other people who see, their gifts too, and pour in and invest and are willing to give and help.
And don't just put our kids into boxes. Like they're only interested in basketball and football, as if that's the only thing that they would ever be interested in.
I think it's important for, similar to what Rita was saying about navigating systems with resources. What's out there? What can I get? What I have learned since I've done this work that a lot of families don't know, if they're part of a managed care organization and you have a child maybe that has had some health issues or whatever, you got a care coordinator for one. And then number two, there are some things that they'll pay for that a lot of people don't know. So it's not just looking at what we have locally, but looking on a wider scale. There's this one organization that I work with. They provide childcare support for families through the insurance company. But a lot of people don't know that. They offer uniforms, 2 or 3 new uniforms every year for their kids, but a lot of parents don't know that. So it's also helping people to look at the bigger picture of what types of resources that are out there that will strengthen your family, that will keep you, together. And I think that that's a critical piece is that asking questions, pushing the envelope. And the one thing I always tell families is you don't have to take no for an answer. You keep looking, you keep turning over stones, you keep looking for what it is. You fight for your kids to give them a better life than what you already had, what you had.